Hi, my name is Olivia Johnson, and this is Tech Demo number 2 on Mr. Washington's 10th grade art and art history class. So in this case study, Mr. Washington is a 10th grade art history teacher, and next week he is going to have his students complete an art history research project. And these students are to find different types of arts and how they were used to represent contemporary social issues at that time. And this project will be in line with the ISBE visual arts standard that explains, make and explain, and justify connections between artists or artwork and social, cultural, and political history. This will be done in small groups organized by different historical periods, such as the anti-war movement of the 1960s or the Black Lives Matter movement. And the final project will be a group presentation where students are to brainstorm, synthesize, and create a presentation on 4 to 5 artists and how they use their art to represent contemporary social issues. So Mr. Washington has some goals for this project, and he wants to use the 3 brainstorming, synthesizing, and creating. So he wants to have his students use different paper materials, so books, websites, videos, paintings, photos. He wants them to use all of that to gather information and then comment on each other's works and provide feedback to other classmates and other students, and finally create an overall presentation that is in line with his outline and goals. Next, he wants to provide a formative assessment and track each student's progress throughout the entire project to make sure they are going to finish the project on time. And finally, he wants to provide feedback throughout the project and at the end to his students. However, he did run into some challenges, which include he struggled to find a website that supports all 3 kinds of collaborative thinking, the brainstorming, synthesizing, and creating. So he's trying to find a website that can support all of those and not just one or the other. Next, he wants to see who has exactly contributed to the project and how often they do, because as we all know with group work, some people contribute more than others, and he wants to see who's contributing the most or if everybody is equally contributing to the project. And finally, he wants all of the work to be private between the group and himself while the project is being worked on. However, at the very end, when the project is finalized, he wants it to be public so they can provide feedback to other students. So Mr. Washington is wondering if there is a method for this, if there's a website for this, and my answer is yes, and the answer is Google Slides. So this, I'm going to open it up real quick. This is what you would see when you would first log in, or when you would first type it in Google, and all you do right here is you would click sign up for free, and all you have to do is put in your email, make a password, put your name in, the whole 9 yards, and then when you do, this is what you would see. Obviously, this one already has a lot of presentations, so this area would be blank. However, this is what you would see. So it's pretty simple. You can click blank or a couple that were already pre-made. And essentially what this website is a collaborative PowerPoint. So it's a presentation maker that multiple people can collaborate on, and it has a lot of different features that are very different from just normal PowerPoint. So we're just going to click on a blank one. So this is what you'd see. Very similar to PowerPoint. However, a lot of cool features. So if you go up here to the top right corner, it says share. Right now it's private only to me, but if I click on it, we'll name it art. And you save it. If you click on it, you can add people to the group. So if you have a small group, in the case of Mr. Washington, if there's a small group for the anti-war movement of the 1960s for like 3 people, you would add these 3 people here, and you would also add your teacher. So you would add Mr. Washington here. That way, it's private only to the group, but it's also private to Mr. Washington. So that's where you would add that right there. I'm just going to click done. And the rest is just making a PowerPoint. So over here on the right, there's different styles that you can pick for your PowerPoint. Everything's very similar to normal PowerPoint. So you go up here to File, you can You can share it, you can create a new one, open some, import slides that you've already made, make a copy, you can email it, download it, the whole 9 yards. But what's really cool is you go here to version history and you click that, and obviously it's a brand new slide, but to the right you would see who exactly did what to this presentation. So this would help Mr. Washington in his case, where he wants to see who is commenting or who is adding what to the presentation, so he knows how to grade them properly. And this is where you would see that right here. And since the students should have made this available to Mr. Washington, he should have full access to this, and he should be able to see who is doing what to the presentation. And then it'll show you here too, visually, exactly what they wrote. And yeah, everything else, I mean, you edit it just like you would a PowerPoint. You can view it, do the presentation, the slideshow, insert images, insert texts, and then way down here you can add speaker notes. So if you want to talk to your fellow classmates who are doing this remotely, you can add that down here. And this would work for all three, the brainstorming, synthesizing, and creating aspects of this project, because they could type right here notes to each other. Just in the brainstorming aspect, that first stage, they could just use this as a messaging board, and Mr. Washington will be able to see that they are brainstorming, they're figuring out, they're working out the details. And if you go over here to the very right bar, there's a calendar. There's a lot of cool, like, this is where you would put a note. This is where you would keep a note, and it's almost like a sticky note, if you will. And then right here are tasks, which is really cool. So if you as a group have come up with kind of like a to-do list of what you need to do for your project, you would put that right here, and you can add a little checklist that opens up every time you open this program up. You can see your little checklist, your to-do list, if you will. This is your contacts, so whoever you've shared it with, and then maps if you need to insert a map. And then this is really cool, if you click get add-ons, there's all of these really cool installations that you can use with Google Slides. So for like Pear Deck, for example, you would just install it to your computer. If you're doing it, if the students are doing it on their personal laptops, you would just install it, and they're able to make really interesting slides, very interactive slides that they can use with the class and just make it more interesting. And this would work for Mr. Washington as well. If he is wanting to create a really fun formative assessment for his students, he could use Pear Deck and install it into Google Slides. So we're going to take a look at what a finished piece would look like. So we're just going to click here, and this one is a presentation for a rehabilitation class, but we're just going to see as an example, and this is what it would look like. And again, it's PowerPoint, so you would just start a slideshow and you would just go through it. So we can do that super fast, and we're just gonna fly through it. And this one's very boring, but if you use Pear Deck with it, or if you use another app with it, you can make it way more interesting, more fun, more animated. But we're going to go right here to File, and we're going to click on Version History and see Version History. And over here you can see who has commented what and who has done what at exactly what time they commented or they added to this slideshow. So if we're going to click on Peyton Reeves right here, who did it at November 12th at 3:53 a.m., we'll click that, and it shows right over here for under this mental disability. So he did this whole slide at that time. So now Mr. Washington knows that he can grade Mr. Peyton for this slide at this time, or if he did it late, or if he did it 5 minutes before class. And then for Liv Johnson, we're going to click down here, November 11th. She didn't do anything. So we're going to click, let's do November 12th at 6:58 a.m. So right here, she did this whole slide. So now Mr. Washington knows to grade her for this whole slide and for her work on this slide. So this, I think, is going to really help Mr. Washington with what he wants to convey, or with what he wants to accomplish, is to grade each student how they deserve to be graded based on the work that they did on a group project, because we all know that sometimes in group projects a lot of people will pull their weight and some people really won't pull their weight. So now he can grade accurately for these students. And that's my favorite thing about this app, is that as an educator, you can grade accurately and no student is going to feel like they did all the work but everybody got the same grade. So we're gonna look at a couple other things. So again, this pre-made slide show doesn't have any apps, no fun things, but again, you're able to, and there's so many, and you can just go up here and search apps. So if you wanted to add a Kahoot straight into the slideshow, you're able to do that, which I think is super cool. So if you wanted, as an educator, if you wanted to add a fun little formative assessment into your lesson for the day as like kind of a break, as like a mental break, but also assessing what your students already know, you can add it right into the slides and you don't have to go to any other website, which I think is super cool. So if we go over to the sides, this is where the tasks would show up, but this group of students did not have any tasks, but this is where it would show up if there were some. And yeah, so we go over here to share, and you can see that it's shared with 3 people. You see that it's shared with Mr. Peyton and Olivia, as well as the instructor down here. So we can see that it's only visible to these 2 students and the instructor and no one else, which is exactly what Mr. Washington wanted done, so he can see the progress and he can grade students accurately. But at the very end, when he needs it to be public, if you go right over here to File, you can click Download, and you can download it, or you can keep the original file and you can publish it straight to the web, or you can share it with other students. So if you have a class, you can share it to every single student in that class, or you can publish it to the web and add it to a private YouTube account. Or if you need to upload the link to Blackboard, you can do it that way and make it public. That way the other students can see it and comment on it and provide you feedback. But I think this is the program that Mr. Washington is looking for, because of all the features that it has. He's able to see who added what to the presentation, so he can grade those students accordingly. The work will be private between the students and himself until it's finalized, to which then the students can publish it to the web and make it public. And it's able to cater to the brainstorming process, the synthesizing process, and the creating, because there's honestly endless opportunities here. If you start with a blank slideshow, you can do so much, and this program offers comments to where students can comment with each other and just make it their own. And up here you can insert images, you can insert audio and videos, so these students are getting their research information from newspapers, from videos, from art, from pictures, and they can insert those right here, so they can show the other students exactly what they learned. So I think that Mr. Washington has found a better solution, and the better solution is Google Slides.